We are recording the interview of Thomas E. Snead, Jr. This interview is being conducted by Wallace Crabb II from the Wright State University Veterans Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at the Holiday Inn at 2800 Presidential Drive, Fairborn, Ohio. It is 4:35 p.m. on October 19th, 2019. All right, so let's start. Where and when were you born?
I was born in Chicago, Illinois on June 21st, 1945. At the time, my mother was living in Chicago and my father was stationed with the U.S. Navy during World War II.
All right, so your dad was in the Navy.
Correct.
What did your mother do?
My mother was just a homemaker.
Okay. And what did your dad do in the Navy? Do you know?
He was a naval aviation mechanic working on PBYs and PBCs.
Okay. Did you have any siblings?
I I have a brother who was. Do you want their names? I have one brother and I have one sister.
All right. And did anybody else in your family aside from your father serve in the military or?
Not during World War II that I'm aware of.
Okay. So you joined the Army, you said?
I joined the Army in 1964. Prior to that, I had actually been in Junior Army, Junior ROTC at Lane Technical High School, and I achieved the rank of cadet lieutenant colonel, and I had a battalion under my command, about 400 students.
Oh wow! So when you joined the Army, did being in ROTC, I guess, carry over into the Army a lot?
It helped. It helped a lot because I had learned obviously marching before, but I'd also been in color guard, and that came in handy during my time in Germany. So yes, it did help. And when I went to the recruiting officer after doing the battery of tests, then he said, "You qualify for one of the most elite units in the Army." So obviously the question was, what's that? And it's ASA. What's ASA? Well, it's Army Security Agency. Well, what is the Army Security Agency? He says, I can't tell you. So anyway, he went on to say that I would probably be in civilian clothes, and I'd be acting like something like James Bond. This is typically what happened with most ASA recruits. We all got the same spiel, so it was kind of funny. But anyway, it was a good enlistment. I mean, I liked it, and I joined right out of high school.
So ASA, is that kind of like almost like a counterintelligence type thing, or?
It's not a counterintelligence thing. Army Security Agency is signal elite. That's what they do nowadays. It's part of military intelligence. But we were not actually Army. We wore Army uniforms, but at the time, nobody ever heard of NSA either, and that was our parent.
Interesting. So the NSA is the National Security. Okay, that's really cool. So what did you do when you were in ASA?
When I was with Army Security Agency, I served. My first tour of duty was on an island off North Korea called Kangwon-do. That was from July of 1964 to July of 1965. And I wound up enlisting as a military policeman with ASA. And part of my tour duty at that time was I did courier duty.
So what did that entail?
Hmm?
What did that entail? Like courier?
Courier, we were carrying highly classified material from our operations area down to our base in Seoul. And my second tour of duty was from September of 65 to September of 68 in Bad Aibling, Germany. It started out as the 320th ASA Battalion, and by the time I left, it was called Bad Aibling Field Station.
So going back to Kangwon-do, where that's in Korea. Where in Korea is that exactly?
It is an island out on the Yellow Sea at the delta of the Han River, and it is well, our island was 1,500 meters from North Korea. During that time there, an interesting thing is when the Gulf of Tonkin occurred in August of 1964. And when the Gulf of Tonkin occurred, we had a buildup on the North Korean shore. We thought we were going to get hit.
Oh, wow. So what was like every day like being in?
It was actually very good. We were pretty much let go on our own. As long as we did our operations, nobody bothered us. And life on the island was good. I had an opportunity to do some touring of Seoul and on the island. But all in all, life was good there.
So I'm actually gonna go back a little bit.
Okay.
Before, you joined the Army. Why did you choose to join the Army rather than Navy since your dad was in the
Because I'd been in Army ROTC,
Oh,
and it gave me an opportunity, to learn the military aspects, and I thought I'd also get some advantages, which I did.
okay, and what was I guess basic training like?
Basic training for me was from January of '64 to April of '64, and that was at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And one interesting aspect of that, and just to give you an idea of what ASA was like, prior to being in the Army, I had been involved in judo for a couple of years. So when I went to Fort Leonard Wood, the cadre there, especially in the hand-to-hand combat, could see that I had martial arts experience. So when they approached me and they said, "Would you like to stay on the cadre?" And I said, "Well, sure." So a couple of days later, they come back to me and they said, "Well, we're sorry, you're ASA. We can't do it." Same thing happened in military police school.
So what were those two schools like?
Uh,
Since you went into
we had basic training. Was basic training. You learn to march. You learn you've got your chemical weapons. You've got your rifle range, self defense. Very typical. I did gain about 20 pounds from being a kid to by the time I graduated from basic training. Military police training, very much. It was totally different. It was you're geared towards military justice rules and how to handle yourself in situations. Basically something like that. And I was at Fort Gordon for military police school from April to June of '64. And I shipped over to Korea. I was probably one of the last troops to do it on a troop ship. It was on the USS Sultan, and we boarded the ship on July 1st of '64, and we had 19 days on the ship before we wound up disembarking in Incheon, Korea.
Wow. So after military police school, and you learned you were going to be an ASA, was there any like special training, or when you got there, they were kind of like, all right, you're going
No,
to be doing your own
no
thing?
special training.
It
As
was
a matter of fact, we didn't. There were four of us MPs on the island, and we didn't use our military police training at all. It was courier duty and stuff like that, security.
wow. So I already asked you what every day was kind of like on the island, but what was the island like in general? Like
Back in 1964, it was very rural. Okay, it was the countryside. The houses were made of adobe, and they had thatched roofs, and it was a one-room dwelling for most of the families. They did not have electricity. Um, the people that were on the island were very friendly towards us. They were very nice people.
did you live in one of those adobe huts as well?
No, I lived in a Quonset hut.
Oh.
Okay, and a Quonset hut had 12 guys to each Quonset hut. Um, our base camp was down in a valley, and the up on the our operations area was on top of a mountain, and we had this very hazardous road we had to go up, and it was really hazardous during the wintertime.
So after you left King Widow, you went. Where did you say you went?
I went to Bad Aibling, Germany. It's Bad Aibling is just off the Munich-Salzburg Autobahn, and near the town of Rosenheim, which was Goring's home. And while I was there, shortly after I got there, I achieved the rank of Spec 4. And that was during the Vietnam era. I was doing more military police type job compared to Korea. And my junior ROTC training came into play there because at that time now, a lot of troops that were coming to Bad Aibling had also been in Vietnam, and they had medals and honors and stuff like that that had to be rendered. So the base put together an honor guard, but they also needed a color guard, and because of while I was in junior ROTC, I had been a color guard string commander. And so I taught our military police how to also do the color guard training that was necessary, how to march and how to do the different formations and things like this. So that's where the background from junior LTC came in. I took a couple of classes in Germany. One of them was a security supervisor, and the other was traffic accident investigation, because our unit was the only MP unit between Munich and Salzburg. So occasionally we had to go out and do traffic accident investigations off base. And I had also, at that time, I had also achieved the rank of Sergeant E5 after about 3 years and 2 months in the Army.
So did you like being in Germany more, or?
Oh, I definitely, I loved Germany. I didn't like beer before I went to Germany.
So you did, I guess more military police type stuff, and I guess normal police type stuff, even going off base. Did you work with like German police, or?
I would work with German police on occasions. Those were generally traffic accident investigations. Or I have a very, very good friend who is still a friend of mine, lives outside of Dallas, a guy by the name of Bill Nolan. And Bill and I used to patrol the beer fest together. We did that for 2 years, and then he had enlisted way before me. So I had an additional year that I worked without him, and I was the chief, and I had another partner who would go around with me at the beer fest, local beer fest.
Were those beer fests hard to maintain, or did you get rowdy at all?
For the most part, no. But at the base in Germany, we had a hawk detachment, and some of those guys were typical Army, not like ASA. ASA were more gentlemanly, shall we say. Had very little trouble with them, but the Hawk missile fellas were regular Army, and that's generally where we had our problems with.
All right.
Had to take a few into the station.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was asking you. I mean, I feel like it's kind of a common thing that when people go, not quite like on to Afghanistan or Iraq, there's not really a whole lot of, I guess, opportunities to do so. But in places like Europe, where it's not a war going on over there, people
Right.
go out on liberty and they get drunk.
Right.
I
And
imagine it gets pretty.
yeah, well, when I was in Germany, I had an opportunity to go to Holland, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, Austria, Italy, Switzerland.
So you've been all over Europe. Pretty much.
I had 3 years over there, and I enjoyed it.
So what was your favorite place to go then?
Rimini, Italy. It's on the Adriatic.
Wow. I don't think I've ever
I went down there a couple different times after I went the first time.
So, let's see. I'm trying not to ask too many of these questions here. So, okay, I guess this is a good question. You're in Europe. What did you do on your free time when you went out to, when you went traveling to other countries? What did you? What were you doing
I was a typical tourist.
Sightseeing. Yeah.
Sightseeing and drinking beer and just enjoying ourselves. I wasn't supposed to, but I had a passport.
They didn't let you have passports, or you weren't supposed to have them?
Military weren't supposed to have them.
See, nowadays you can get a government passport, so if you're in the military, so I guess that's pretty different. I know you have this reunion here where a lot of you guys.
Yes. All of us were on that island.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
in Korea.
Did you know all these guys when you were there, or is this more like a lot of them you met once this reunion
I think that we have 34 that are attending the reunion at this time, and I probably knew about 6 of us, or from the era when I was on there.
Oh. So do you have any other friends that you've kept in contact with over such a long time?
There's just a couple of fellas, Bill, who's down in Dallas. But he and I have been in touch ever since, for 50 years.
Wow. So that's a pretty lifelong friendship. So you pretty much served your entire time overseas.
That's correct. Most of us probably did.
I guess that was during that time.
It was during that time. A lot of these guys served in Vietnam at one time or another. I did not. I did have orders that had been cut and they rescinded them. I was supposed to go to Vietnam. It was I think around November of '64 they had cut them.
Oh, wow.
And then because there was only 4 of us MPs, they said, "No, can't do it."
I had a question. So did you leave the Army out of Germany? That was your last duty station?
That was my last duty station.
And what was it like coming home after being gone for 4 years straight, basically?
That one was rough. Only because at that time, this was in 1968, and after I was discharged, we still had to wear uniforms while we were on the aircraft, and got cussed at, and everything else when I at Newark Airport. Same thing when I landed in Chicago.
And that was, I guess,
Because of
disagreement,
Vietnam demonstrators.
I'm sorry that happened. And I guess it's interesting because, they don't even know the story behind everybody. You were never in Vietnam.
No.
Even if they,
But we were military.
Yeah.
And that's all they saw.
That's a pretty unfortunate time in history, I guess. What did you do after you got home, though?
After I got home, a week after I got home, I became an insurance adjuster because of my traffic accident investigation background.
That makes sense.
And I've been involved in insurance since. I now have my own insurance brokerage agency, and this year it's 51 years.
Wow. So you didn't take any time off when you got back?
Nope. Nope. I got out September 1st, 1968, Labor Day, and prior to doing that, what happened is my brother and his wife got killed on their honeymoon on his 21st birthday in an auto accident. So I came home on emergency leave, and while I was home on emergency leave, an adjuster came out to the house, and I thought, hey, how nice to help people out, in a time of stress. So I talked to our agent at the time, and I said, how do I get a job like that? So he had me talk to the regional claims manager. He set up an appointment for me, and we talked, and he said finally that yeah, I think we'd be interested in it if we have. Obviously, we can't do anything now, but check with me when you get out, and we'll see. So I got out on Monday. Wednesday, I talked to him. Thursday, he calls me up and he says, do you have a car? And I said, no, not yet. He says, well, if you get a car, we'd like to have you start by Monday. So I've been in insurance ever since.
So I guess you liked it enough to start your own business.
Yeah, I've had my own agency for 26 years.
Wow. Well, I guess you didn't have. I was going to ask if it was hard to readjust, but it seemed like you jumped right in and you got to it. Are you a member of any? Well, aside from this reunion, are you a member of any veteran organizations or?
I'm not a member of American Legion or VFW, but I am a national member of the ASA Association. I'm also involved with the Veterans Military Police.
Well, that gets kind of our basic questions out of the way. What I wanted to go back and ask is, are there any stories that jump out at you? Either your time in Kingwado, is it Kingwado?
Kingwado. Yeah.
Kingwado, or when you were in Germany as an MP. Are there any stories that jump out at you that?
No, at this time I can't think of any.
That's what happens to me. Okay. Well, maybe we'll come back to it if you want. Okay, are there any, I know you learned a lot of stuff that is now in your life. Your insurance, your job, you learned that in the Army. Are there any other life lessons that you learned while you're in the Army that have
Oh,
helped you
it's
throughout your life?
but the time that I spent in Korea made me really appreciate America. Back then, like I said, uh, the average income for a Korean family was $60 a year. I'm making, as a PFC, I'm making $78 a month.
That's,
The roads were all dirt. They had one superhighway up towards Seoul. All the rest of them, the roads were dirt. And living in adobe thatched roofed houses, single rooms, it makes you appreciate what we had in America. And being 19 years old at that time, wow, it's quite an impression.
it really puts things into perspective, I
Yeah.
imagine. Are there any other ways that being in the Army, and I guess aside from your job once again, that it's impacted your life in, like, have you carried any of that with you when you?
Oh, you still have a tendency to make sure your gig line is straight, which is the zipper or the front of your pants and the buckle and your shirt line all line up. I still do it.
Same here. Well, I know I have questions, but I can't think of them. Just like when I asked you how many stories, they're just, getting lost in there. Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed in this interview that you want in the interview?
I think that pretty much covers, most of the time that I was in. Um, the reason I wanted to do this is because my father served during World War II in the Pacific, and we never heard any of the stories. I know that he was stationed one time or another in Canaway Bay, but I'm pretty sure he was closer to the front lines because I had seen pictures of natives that appeared to be from some other island. It definitely wasn't Hawaii. So I'm glad that we're having an opportunity to do this.
It is important to get them. I mean, this is history, really. I mean, you might think it's a very small part, but I mean, everybody's experience is different in the military, and you don't really get a whole lot of that.
Right.
When you see it in TV or in books, it's always the big stuff. And
It's the big stuff, but our unit, ASA, you had to score high on your enlistments. Um, they only accepted like 3% of enlisted personnel that tested.
so it was a selective program, and
It's
That's-
sort of, huh?
it was a selective program, and
It
that's
was a
something
very
that
selective,
very
very
few people have
selective.
done. And
Almost anybody that was with ASA could have qualified for officers candidate school. That's how high we had to test.
did you ever think about trying to be an officer? Or
Before Vietnam, yeah.
that is, yeah.
But then when Vietnam started, and we also started to get draftees into the program, and I didn't like the idea of what we were getting as far as draftees, and I knew that that's what they were getting in Vietnam.
So, did Vietnam starting, did that affect, I guess, your decision to get out of the Army, or was it always just, I want to do it?
No, it did affect it, because originally I was thinking about going in and staying in for at least 20 years. And had Vietnam not come along, yes, I would have gone for officers candidate school because of my ROTC background.
Yeah, that's. Well, I'm gonna ask one more time. Is there anything else that you think we should include? I don't want to miss out on anything. I don't want you to remember later, and then I mean that's fine.
Yeah.
But I want to
can't-
give you as many chances as you can to.
I can't think of anything else.
All right. So the last thing is, what message would you like to leave for future generations who might watch this or hear it?
Support your troops. You know, it's not us that goes off and commits war. War is generated by civilians, civilians that are in the executive office and in Congress. So, like what we have seen during the Iraq wars and the Afghanistan, the troops have had great support from the American people, and I think that that's really good.
I agree. Well, that concludes our interview with Thomas E. Snead, Jr. Thank you for your time today and for your military service.
Thank you.